All right, joining us now, as promised, from Raiderland, Red Raiderland, Chris Lovell, who is the color voice on the basketball Texas Tech Red Raiders basketball network. By the way, a sister network of the Cowboy Network, and I guess we're all together now with Learfield IMG College, but Tech's been a Learfield property for some time. He does the sidelines on the football broadcast as well. Chris Lovell joins us, and Chris, first of all, congratulations on the run. I heard you a lot on Sirius XM. I know you were getting requests all over the place during the Red Raiders' run to the Final Four in the national championship game, and yeah, I became a big Red Raider fan. Sean Sutton is such a good friend, and I'm so much admire Sean for the way he faced his personal adversity and what he's done. And I know he's done a great job helping Chris Beard there, but it hurt because I could see you guys were able to taste a national championship. It was just right there, and I hated that. But what a great season! I know you had a fun time being a part of that.
Yeah, that's one of those deals, man. It's just a kind of a lifetime, experience or experience of a lifetime. I guess I put those words in the wrong order, but just an unbelievable last 2 months with those kids, and I think Beard and Sutton and everybody that they squeezed about as much as they possibly could have out of that team. And I mean, you're right. Up three with 15 seconds to go. Yeah, you feel like you're potentially on the way. And but Virginia was really, really good. Credit to them and credit to their guys for hitting tough shots. But yeah, fun time in the last really 2 years with this program. And really, I think Beard has just put these kids in this program on the map. Certainly, I don't expect them to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean there'll be a ring, a Final Four ring, but that was the first thing I thought when Tech went up, and I turned to my wife and said, "Man, they're going to win it. They're going to win the national championship." I said, "All those guys, they're thinking ring size right now. How's that going to look on my finger? That national championship ring?" I would have been, and I was happy for you guys the way it turned out, and uh, here, down here, and I know it's not as big a story, obviously, at Texas Tech, but folks here were angry going into the Final Four again because
Yeah, Eddie
Coach
Sutton.
Sutton, Eddie
Yeah,
Sutton,
yeah.
was not voted into the Hall of Fame, and I thought it was such an appropriate year because Sidney Moncrief was going to go in, one of his players at Arkansas, and then Sean was going to be coaching in Minneapolis, and I just thought, man, this is karma. This is the way it was supposed to be, and that didn't happen. But I was still so excited for Sean, and I'm sure you've got a chance to get to know him. Sean was so good when he was here. He was fun to spend time with, and honestly, and I know Chris is a tremendous basketball coach, but Sean is probably, for me, Chris, the guy that I've been able to speak with that has been able to teach me more basketball just having conversations with him. Sean's that smart about the game.
Yeah, it's funny because Cyprian, obviously being on the staff this year too, because
Yeah,
Sean
Glenn.
and Glenn, they had talked about how they kind of bookended the league championships around the Jayhawks. That they were the last part of the last team that had won it before that 14-year string, and then they were part of the team that broke the streak with the Red Raiders this year. So they had a lot of fun times together too, just kind of reminiscing and going back to some of those. And I think even Sip had said that this Texas Tech team reminded him of that Tony Allen Oklahoma State team, but had a lot of basketball brilliance around Beard this year. That's one of his best skill sets, is surrounding himself with bright minds that really hit it from all angles. Whether you want offense, you want good out of bounds stuff, you want defense with Mark Adams, and on it goes. But that's the brilliance of Beard, man. And then he's just a grinder, and he's all and that never takes a day off. From the standpoint of he's always got that energy and squeezing everything he can out of those kids, and it certainly worked this year.
Chris Level with us again, color voice on the Red Raider Basketball Network, and sidelines down there on the field with me and guys like Matt Walters and around the conference do a terrific job. I don't know, Chris, with the basketball run, how much football you got to see. The Red Raiders were all over the place. Lubbock with a scrimmage, and then out in Midland, and then finished up this weekend in Frisco. And you just spoke of coaching brilliance. I know it's a little early to anoint new head coach Matt Wells in football, but I get a little bit of a read from some of these coaches coming into the league because I've got a son that's a head coach at the junior college level, and in fact, he has a running back that was recruited by Matt Wells out to Utah State that's going to be a high NFL draft pick, Darwin Thompson, this year, and so he's been able to kind of verse me a little bit on Matt Wells and what kind of coach he is. He's had a chance to get to know him, and I've said this on this show. Matt Wells being in Lubbock is a scary thing for the rest of the Big 12. I don't know how quickly it will happen, but I have a lot of confidence this guy is going to get the job done. Tech is going to be a lot better in football. The question isn't if it'll happen, it's when.
Yeah, I was in Frisco and saw several practices kind of in between basketball trips, and Matt, he's just a real guy, and he brought his entire staff. So I think they all knew how to, for the most part, he brought his entire staff, all but about 2 or 3 guys. But the strength coach came, and the coordinators, and most of the position coaches, they did bring in a different special teams coach and a different D-line coach, but those guys all know how to work together. They know what their plan is and kind of what it looks like, and they just got to win some recruiting battles. And as long as Alan Bowman, though, stays healthy, I mean, they're going to be just fine this year and in the immediate. It's just a matter of keeping him healthy and keeping those lungs okay. But, Matt, again, I think he's acclimated quickly to the Lubbock community, and he was up at the Final Four in Minneapolis, and he spent a lot of time with Beard, which I think is interesting because they've been sharing ideas on how to build culture and team and recruiting to Lubbock and all those kinds of things. So, yeah, I think he's pushed a lot of right buttons since he's been in Lubbock starting 1st of December. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they've got on tap. But yeah, he's a well respected. That's the one thing I really learned. Is that he and his staff, they recruited the state of Texas a lot, but you just don't think of Utah State much when you're thinking of schools that come into the state. But they learned how to get more out of less at a place like Logan, Utah, and it's all about player development. And I think that's what Beard does a good job at. You're not getting McDonald's All-Americans here, so you got to develop these kids, and that's what I think Coach Wells and his staff have been really good at where they were before, and they'll have to continue to do that. But, he's been a welcomed addition in Lubbock, certainly.
Just looking at the event in Frisco the other day, which I think that's a really cool thing to do, to take, Texas Tech always draws well from the Metroplex, whether we're talking recruiting or attendance and fans. So to bring that into the Metroplex at Frisco is a home run deal. Speaking of home runs, it looks like you mentioned Alan Bowman, but one of the guys that got a lot of attention coming out of the Frisco event is a redshirt freshman receiver, Eric Izukanma.
Yeah, Izukama. Yeah, you can just leave the N silent. But yeah,
there you
around
go.
here they call him Easy, just for short, because nobody wants to run through the Izukama. Yeah. No, what was interesting about the spring, I think like a lot of programs had to deal with these injuries, and sometimes your numbers are short, and so you end up either canceling the spring game or kind of modifying things just because you don't have numbers, whether it be in the trenches or elsewhere. And what was interesting about Tech spring is that they were as healthy as completely as possibly could be in the trenches with their O-line and D-line. Had a lot of numbers there, but it was receiver and at DB where they really went down. And so a guy like Eric, he benefited from T.J. Vasher and Seth Collins and some other guys being out for the spring, and he got the bulk of the reps. And I think what he showed them is he's a playmaker, and he redshirted last year and played a little bit at times last year, but was still able to hold on to that redshirt year because of that 4-game and still being able to redshirt rule that they implemented last year. But yeah, he was a bright spot. There's no doubt, and then he had over 100 yards receiving and made some plays on Saturday in front of a decent crowd. So if he can continue to do that in fall camp, he's certainly going to be a name that people hear from.
It didn't show up down the stretch last year, but I was really impressed that David Gibbs, the former defensive coordinator, I thought had started to turn the corner Tech defensively, and the secondary was really good. A lot of talented players in that Tech secondary. But now, the things I'm hearing, and it doesn't surprise me because I know Keith pretty well, but Keith Patterson's come in and really picked up the torch and kind of done a good job of taking what David Gibbs had built there on the defense and taking it a step further. And that's always kind of been the knock with the Red Raiders. A great offense, but and it's a knock in the Big 12. I mean, it's a knock with some of the best teams in the league. Great
Right.
offense and not so good defensively, but it looks like Tech is, and I expected him to under Matt Wells to be better on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and as Coach Gibbs, he clearly created a culture and laid a foundation where they started to improve on defense. A lot of takeaways, much more so 2 years ago than last season, as far as just creating turnovers. But Gibbs at the end of the day, he was there were more kind of a bend but don't break. Hey, we're going to make you try to drive this thing 10 to 15 plays down the field. We're not going to give up the big play. We're going to keep everything in front of us, and some cushion there with your DBs, and hey, we're going to tighten this thing up in the red zone. And I think Coach Patterson is not that he's opposite, but I think they want to force the issue a little bit. And I think that it's not that he's going to be okay with giving up some big plays, but they're going to take some chances. They're going to be a lot more aggressive, and they know that they're going to have to live with the results there. But they just, I think that's just what he feels like is best suited for this league and the style of offense that Tech plays. And a lot of these teams play is that you've got to take some chances. You can't just sit back and let these really good offensive coaches and these really good quarterbacks pick you apart because they're good enough to do that. You can't rely on a team to commit a penalty or throw it to you or whatever, and that you've got to force the issue a little bit. And again, that there's going to be some times where that burns you on occasion too. But Coach Patterson really has talked about being aggressive, and hey, we want the offense to react to us, not vice versa. So, but yeah, he's a fiery guy, certainly fiery guy.
And again, Texas Tech now gets ready for next season, and I think it's going to be an interesting year in the Big 12. And I was going to get your take on this to kind of wrap it up. And I know I worried because I'm like, Chris has still got to be somewhat in basketball mode. You don't shut it off that quickly. Although you probably did going to Frisco last weekend, but last weekend was just about everybody had their spring games. I think Iowa State's not going to have one, but they're practicing this week. Oklahoma has their final practice today. Oklahoma State will practice into Saturday and finish up with a public practice, not a scrimmage or a game. But as you look at this, I mean, I think the national flavor is this is an Oklahoma-Texas league again. I don't have a problem with that perception. I just hope it's not our reality, because being at one of those schools that's not named Oklahoma or Texas, I like to see the rest of the league have a say in this. And frankly, I'd rather see any of the other teams in the league win the conference. So, which hadn't happened in a while. Oklahoma's owned this. But as you look forward, you guys have a new head coach, West Virginia. Les Miles is in it, Kansas, and K-State's got, obviously a strong coach coming in that's won national championships at the FCS level. When you look at the whole league, Chris, early on, way early, what's your perspective going into next season?
Yeah, I think that Texas is going to get a lot of pub, obviously because of the way they ended the year, and Sam Ellinger starting to figure it out. I think Jalen Hurts coming in Oklahoma, kind of obviously what Lincoln's kind of building there. I tell you, the team that is going to be talked about quite a bit, and deservedly so, is Iowa State and Brock Purdy and kind of them kind of starting to emerge as kind of with consistency here, and then they'll be kind of a scary team. And it was interesting following. The situation at Baylor when their coach almost maybe takes it to the NFL, but he's Coach Rule's certainly building something there in Waco to where they're just starting to be a lot more competitive. But yeah, the Red Raiders and Oklahoma State, just kind of right there, and TCU is I don't think going away. So it's a good league. West Virginia lost a lot, but I know Neil very very well. He was in Lubbock for several years while Coach Tuberville was here, and I think he was in the mix for the Tech job too. But West Virginia did very very well by adding Neil Brown and a young bright guy that much like I think Coach Wells will have a plan and certainly knows what he wants to get done. And that's the biggest thing, man. If you got an identity and you got an idea of what you want to get done, as opposed to hey, let's just kind of figure this thing out on the fly, which is what shockingly a lot of coaches do at various sports and schools and stuff. But it should be a good league, and the quarterbacks will determine this thing. I mean Ellinger and Purdy and Bowman and Hurts and there's a lot of good quarterbacks in this league that are I think known quantities around college football for the most part now, and that's what makes it for a fun race because the right quarterback gets hot and stays healthy, that team can kind of come up from out of nowhere and win the league on occasion.
Yeah, I know we saw Alan Bowman before he had that first lung injury and yeah, the night we saw him in Stillwater, he was red hot. Yeah, and again, my audience knows I'm not just saying this because I've got you on. I've said it throughout since the new coaches came into the league. After the end of the season, the hires were made. I think there's some good coaches that came in the league, but if you ask me, the one that scares me the most, the one I think is going to have the most success of the new coaches, he's your guy out there in Lubbock. I am a big Matt Wells believer, and like I said, it's not a question of if; it's a question of how quickly he gets everything together that he needs to get, and then I think he's going to have a lot of success, and I think a big part of it is recruiting to Lubbock. It's not. It's a little bit like Stillwater. It's off the beaten path. You got to have a plan, and you've got to be organized. And I think Matt Wells will be very good in that area. So I think you've got a lot of good to look forward to on the gridiron to go with all that basketball with Chris Beard.
Well, let's hope that's the case. Rising tide raises all boats, man. So it certainly helps the profile of the league. Somebody other than Kansas, it competes for the league title in basketball, and the same would be in football if somebody other than Oklahoma or Texas can get this thing done.
Hey, Chris, I appreciate your time. We'll look forward to seeing you. I know the Cowboys head out there for a baseball series, but I assume we will definitely see you in Oklahoma City at the Chickasaw Ballpark. So
You got it, and then we'll see you. If not before that, we'll see you in early October, I guess, in Lubbock for that football game on October the 5th. Looking forward to it.
all right, Chris, I appreciate it, and congratulations again on a basketball season that I'm sure you'll remember your entire life.
Hey, yeah, no, there's no doubt whatsoever. And Robert, I appreciate you having me on. You guys do a great job, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, Chris Level from Texas Tech, and again, I tell you what, be concerned, because Matt Wells is, I mean, he's going to have that thing going.